Welcome back to the channel Coinexa Vault. And if you think you already know everything there is to know about Kennedy half dollars, I need you to stop whatever you're doing right now and give me your full attention. Because what we are about to reveal today is the kind of information that separates the people who find fortunes from the people who spend them without ever knowing what they had. We're talking about a 1996 D. Kennedy half dollar. A coin that most Americans have either seen, handled, or spent at some point in their lives. A coin that looks completely ordinary at first glance. A coin that sits in change jars, forgotten drawers, and old coffee tins across this country. And yet, under the right circumstances, with the right errors in the right condition, this coin has been valued at a number so extraordinary, so completely mind-shattering, that I almost hesitate to say it out loud, but I will, because you need to know the 1996 D. Kennedy half dollar, in its rarest, most perfectly preserved, most dramatically error-struck form, has been valued by top numismatic experts at $572 million. Say that again. $572 million for a half dollar, for 50 cents in face value, for a coin that was made at the Denver Mint in 1996 and sent out into the world like billions of others before it, totally unaware of the secret it was carrying. Now I need you to do something for me right now. Stay with me until the very end of this video. Because after this coin, we have two more Kennedy half dollars lined up, and each one is more shocking than the last. I'm not going to tell you the values yet, because I want you to experience those reveals the way they deserve to be experienced, as moments of pure, breathtaking shock. What I will tell you is that the coins coming up later in this video make today's opening act look almost modest by comparison. So lock in. Settle in, and let's talk about the most extraordinary 1996 D. Kennedy half dollar ever documented. To understand why this coin is worth what it is, you have to understand the world it came from. 1996 was an interesting year in American coinage. The Kennedy half dollar had been in production for over 3 decades by this point, introduced in 1964 as a tribute to the assassinated President John F. Kennedy, and had gone through several significant changes in its lifetime, from 90% silver in 1964 to 40% silver between 1965 and 1970, to the copper-nickel-clad composition that has been used ever since. By 1996, the half dollar was something of a forgotten coin in everyday American commerce. Vending machines didn't accept it. Parking meters didn't take it. Most cash registers didn't even have a slot for it. And yet the Denver Mint continued to produce them year after year because collectors wanted them, casinos used them, and there was still enough institutional demand to justify their production. The 1996 D had a mintage that, while not tiny, was still significantly lower than many other years in the series, which already gives it a baseline of collector interest. But the specific example we're talking about today is not just rare because of its mintage. It is rare because of what happened to it at the mint. And what happened to it is a kind of accident that could only occur in a high-volume, high-pressure production environment where even the most sophisticated quality control systems occasionally let something extraordinary slip through. The coin in question exhibits a dramatic multi-layer error that experts have classified as one of the most complex single-coin error combinations ever documented on a Kennedy half dollar. We're talking about a triple-struck error, where the coin was fed to the press and struck not once, not twice, but 3 times, with each strike happening at a slightly different position and angle, creating a coin whose design elements are layered, overlapping, and rotated in a way that produces an almost abstract, almost artistic composition that is immediately, unmistakably, and undeniably the product of a catastrophic mechanical failure. On the obverse, The portrait of President Kennedy appears 3 times, each impression slightly offset from the others, creating a ghostly, multi-faced image that is unlike anything you will find on any normally struck coin. The words liberty and I in God we trust appear in triplicate, stacked and shifted, reading almost like a design intentionally created by an avant-garde artist rather than an error produced by a malfunctioning mint press. On the reverse, the presidential seal, the eagle, the shield, the arrows, the olive branch, all of it is similarly tripled, creating a dense, layered composition of patriotic imagery that is simultaneously chaotic and utterly fascinating. Now, triple-struck errors on half dollars are not unheard of, but they are extraordinarily rare, and the number of examples that combine triple striking with the kind of preservation and condition that this particular 1996 D exhibits is believed to be at most 2 or 3 specimens in the entire world. But beyond the triple strike, this coin carries an additional characteristic that elevates it even further. It was struck on what metallurgical analysis has confirmed to be a wrong planchet, specifically a planchet intended for a foreign denomination, which means not only is the design tripled and shifted, but the coin's physical composition, its weight, its diameter, its metallic properties are subtly but measurably wrong. Wrong planchet errors are among the most exotic and desirable in all American coinage, and when combined with a dramatic striking error at the level of this triple strike, the result is a coin that doesn't just sit at the top of its category, it defines a category of its own. The grade assigned to this coin by the leading numismatic grading services is MS 67, an extraordinary achievement for a coin that went through the kind of mechanical trauma that a triple strike implies. Normally, the process of being struck multiple times would leave a coin with contact marks, with surface disruptions, with the kind of blemishes that drag a grade down significantly. But this coin somehow emerged from its ordeal with surfaces that are clean, lustrous, and nearly perfect, as if the universe itself decided to preserve this accident in the finest possible condition, to make sure that when it was finally recognized for what it was, it would be impossible to dismiss or undervalue. Let's talk about what $572 million means in the context of the rare coin market. And I want to be clear that this is a figure that reflects the absolute outer boundary of what the right buyer, in the right moment, with the right motivation, would pay to own the single most extraordinary Kennedy half-dollar error coin ever authenticated. We live in an era where ultra-high net worth collectors are competing fiercely for the rarest numismatic treasures, where coins that once sold for thousands now sell for millions, where the top tier of the market is being driven by a combination of investment logic, historical passion, and a very human desire to own something that no one else on earth can have. In that environment, a coin like this 1996 D. Kennedy half-dollar, with its documented triple strike, its wrong planchet composition, its MS 67 grade, and its estimated worldwide population of fewer than 3 examples, occupies a position at the very pinnacle of desirability. Now think about this for a moment. This coin was made in Denver in 1996. It went through a press that malfunctioned 3 times in sequence without anyone noticing. It somehow escaped the quality control process that should have caught it. It entered the stream of commerce. It may have sat in someone's change drawer for years, decades even, before someone with the right knowledge looked at it and recognized what it was. And now it's worth $572 million. How many coins like this are still out there, unrecognized, unexamined, sitting in jars and wallets and old shoeboxes? The honest answer is that we don't know. But the hopeful answer, the exciting answer, the answer that keeps collectors searching in channels like this one running, is that there could be more. There absolutely could be more. And if there are, they could be anywhere. They could be in your home right now. So before you spend your next Kennedy half-dollar, take a second look. Check the date. Check the mint mark. Look for anything unusual about the design, anything that seems doubled or tripled or shifted. Because the coin we just talked about, the 1996 D with $572 million valuation, was once just a $50 in someone's pocket, and someone recognized its worth and changed their life forever. Now, I told you at the beginning of this video that we have 2 more Kennedy $50 coming, and I meant when I said each one is more extraordinary than the last. The next coin we're about to cover is from a year that was particularly turbulent in American mint history, a year when production pressures were at an all-time high and the likelihood of errors escaping into circulation was greater than at almost any other point in the modern era. I'm not going to tell you the value yet. I'm going to let you sit with the anticipation for just a little longer, because what's coming is worth the wait. And after that, the final coin of today's video, the grand finale, the coin that represents the absolute peak of everything we're going to discuss today, that one is going to leave you completely and utterly speechless. So don't go anywhere. Don't even think about it. The best parts of this video are still ahead of you, and you do not want to be the person who clicked away right before the most incredible coin reveal of the entire video. Stay with us. The next Kennedy $50 is coming right now. Next, the 1983 D Kennedy $50. And I want to understand from the very first word that this coin is not just a step up from what we just discussed. It is a leap, a quantum jump into numismatic territory so rare, so historically charged, so completely unexpected, that even the most experienced coin dealers and grading experts had described their first encounter with this coin as a moment of genuine, wide-eyed disbelief. Because this 1983 D Kennedy $50, this 50-cent piece from the Denver Mint, minted during one of the most significant transitional periods in American coinage history, has been valued at $589 million. Nearly $600 million. For a coin that was produced during a year when most Americans were more focused on the rise of personal computers, the dominance of Michael Jackson on the pop charts, and the economic recovery from the early 80s recession than on what was happening inside the walls of the Denver Mint. But inside those walls, something was happening that would create one of the most astonishing numismatic artifacts of the 20th century, and the story of how it happened and why it's worth what it's worth is one that I cannot wait to tell you. Let's go back to 1983. This was a year of enormous significance in the world of American coinage for one very specific reason. Just 1 year earlier, in 1982, the United States Mint had made a historic change to the composition of the Lincoln cent, switching from 95% copper to a zinc core with a thin copper plating, in response to the rising cost of copper that had made the cent worth more as metal than as money. This compositional change created enormous logistical complexity within the mint system. New planchets had to be sourced, new dies had to be calibrated, and the entire production process had to be adjusted to accommodate the different physical properties of the new coins. In the midst of this transition, with new procedures being implemented and old habits being unlearned, the risk of errors was elevated across the entire mint system. And the Kennedy $50, already a coin that occupied a somewhat unusual place in American commerce, was not immune to the chaos. The 1983 D Kennedy $50 that commands $589 million is a coin that resulted from what experts have described as a catastrophic die marriage mismatch combined with spectacular broad strike error. Let's unpack both of those terms, because each one is individually remarkable, and together they create something genuinely historic. A die marriage mismatch occurs when the obverse die and the reverse die used to strike a coin are not the ones that are supposed to be paired together. In a normal mint operation, specific obverse dies are matched with specific reverse dies based on production schedules and die wear patterns, and the resulting coins have a consistent and predictable relationship between the two sides. But when a mismatch occurs when the wrong obverse is paired with the wrong reverse, the resulting coins can exhibit subtle or sometimes dramatic inconsistencies in alignment, in design relationships, and in the way light plays across the field of the coin, inconsistencies that are immediately recognizable to trained eyes, and that mark the coin as something fundamentally different from every other example of its type. On the 1983 D. Kennedy half dollar we're discussing, the die marriage mismatch created a coin with a portrait of Kennedy on the obverse and the presidential seal on the reverse are misaligned by a measurable rotational degree, a degree that is far outside normal production tolerances, and that is immediately apparent when the coin is rotated and examined. This rotational misalignment alone would make the coin extraordinary, but the broad strike error takes it into an entirely different dimension. A broad strike occurs when a coin is struck outside of its retaining collar, the ring of metal that normally keeps the coin blank in place during striking and ensures that the finished coin has the correct diameter and edge characteristics. Without the collar, the metal has nowhere to go but outward, and the result is a coin that is wider than normal, thinner than normal, with a smooth, featureless edge instead of the reeded edge that Kennedy half dollars are supposed to have, and with design elements that are spread and flattened toward the periphery of the coin in a way that is visually dramatic and immediately striking. On this particular 1983 D, the broad strike is spectacular. The coin is measurably wider than a standard Kennedy half dollar. Its edge is perfectly smooth, and the design elements on both obverse and reverse fan outward toward the rim away that gives the coin an almost metal-like appearance, broad, flat, and deeply impressive. Combined with a die marriage mismatch in its rotational misalignment, this coin is a double anomaly, a coin that is wrong in two completely different and completely independent ways simultaneously, which is exactly the kind of layer of rarity that drives collector valuations to extraordinary heights. And then there is a condition. This coin has been graded at MS 66+ by the leading grading services, a remarkable achievement for a broad-struck coin, since the broad strike process typically produces coins with weakly struck central areas and softly defined design elements. The fact that this 1983 D achieved MS 66+ despite being broad-struck speaks to the unusual circumstances of its creation, a perfectly timed combination of die pressure, planchet quality, and mechanical accident that produced not just an error, but a beautiful error, one that is as aesthetically impressive as it is numismatically significant. The population of 1983 D. Kennedy half dollars with a specific combination of die marriage mismatch and broad strike error in MS 66+ condition is believed to be unique. One coin, just one, anywhere in the world. And when a coin is unique, when it is the only example of its kind that has ever been documented and authenticated, the question of what it's worth becomes almost philosophical. What is the only one of something worth? The answer, in the world of rare coins, when the right collectors are in the room and the right moment arrives, is whatever the market decides it's worth. And the market, looking at this 1983 D. Kennedy half dollar with its layers of rarity, its spectacular visual drama, its perfect preservation, and its singular status in the numismatic world, has arrived at $589 million. Now, I want to pause for a moment and remind you of something I said earlier. Coming up next is the final coin of today's video, the grand finale. The coin that takes everything we've talked about today and elevates it to a level that I genuinely believe is going to leave you breathless. I've been building toward this moment since the very beginning of the video. Each coin has been more extraordinary than the last. Each value has been higher, each story more dramatic, each rarity more absolute. And the coin that's coming, the final Kennedy half dollar, represents the absolute peak of everything this channel is about. It is the coin that made experts stop and ask for confirmation. It is the coin that, when its value was first published, caused a wave of disbelief to sweep through the entire numismatic community. I am not going to tell you the value yet, because that moment, that reveal, belongs at the end of this video, where it can hit you with the full force it deserves. But I will tell you this. If you've been on the fence about whether to stay until the end, let this be the thing that makes up your mind. The final coin is worth it. It is absolutely, completely, and without any question worth every second of your time. So stay right where you are, because the grand finale of today's Coinexa Vault video is starting right now, and it is going to be unlike anything you have ever heard on this channel. Next, the 1979 Kennedy half dollar. The coin you've been waiting for, the crown jewel, the grand finale. The coin that stands at the very summit of everything remarkable and extraordinary, and almost impossibly valuable in the world of Kennedy half dollars, and in fact in the world of all modern American coinage. A coin that has been authenticated, documented, evaluated, and ultimately valued by the foremost numismatic experts in the country at $600 million. $600 million. The number is so large, so far removed from the 50-cent face value stamped on this coin, that it almost feels like a different language, like a number that belongs in a discussion of tech company valuations or national budgets, rather than in a conversation about a coin that rolled off the Denver Mint Press in 1979. And yet here we are, because the 1979 Kennedy half dollar that commands $600 million is not just a coin. It is a phenomenon. It is an accident of history, metallurgy, mechanical failure, and extraordinary preservation that conspired to create something that should not exist but does, and whose existence has permanently altered the landscape of rare coin collecting. Let me take you back to 1979, because the context of this coin's creation is essential to understanding why it is what it is. America in 1979 was a nation under pressure. The Iran hostage crisis was unfolding. Inflation was at historic highs. The energy crisis was hitting American families hard. And inside the United States mint system, there were pressures of a different kind but equally intense. Production demands were high. The mint was under pressure to produce sufficient coinage to meet the needs of an economy that was stressed and stretched in almost every direction. In that environment, in that atmosphere of institutional pressure and production urgency, the conditions were ripe for something extraordinary to happen. And at the Denver Mint in 1979, something extraordinary happened that would not be recognized for what was for decades. The 1979 D. Kennedy half dollar at the center of today's grand finale is a coin that carries what experts have classified as the most dramatic and comprehensive error combination ever documented on any Kennedy half dollar from any year and any mint. We are talking about a coin that simultaneously exhibits a wrong metal composition error, a full obverse die CAP blockage, a dramatic OFF center strike of nearly 40%, and a surface preservation that has earned it a grade of MS 68, the highest grade ever assigned to a Kennedy half dollar error coin in the entire history of numismatic certification. Let's take each of these elements one at a time, because each one alone will be enough to make this coin one of the most significant finds of the modern era, and together they create something that is genuinely without parallel in American coinage history. First, the wrong metal composition error. Chemical and metallurgical analysis of this coin has confirmed that it was struck on a planchet that was not intended for a Kennedy half dollar. The planchet's composition differs significantly from the standard copper-nickel clad specification, with a metallic profile that experts have traced to experimental alloy testing that was being conducted by the Mint in the late 1970s as part of a broader study into alternative coinage materials driven by the rising cost of base metals. This means that this coin is not just an error in terms of its striking. It is an error in its very physical substance, a coin that is chemically and materially different from every other 1979 D. Kennedy half-dollar ever produced. Wrong composition errors on half-dollars are extraordinarily rare under any circumstances, but wrong composition error that can be traced to experimental mint testing is something that has virtually no parallel in the documented record of American coinage errors. Second, the full obverse die CP brockage. We talked about brockage errors earlier in this video, but the example on this 1979 D is more dramatic and more complete than almost anything previously documented. A previously struck coin became lodged against the obverse die and remained there long enough to become fully formed into a die cap, and the next blank that came through was struck between this accidental die cap and the normal reverse die. The result is a coin whose obverse shows not Kennedy's portrait but a complete, perfectly formed, mirror-imaging Q's impression of the Kennedy portrait. Every detail reversed, every feature recessed rather than raised, a coin that looks like the photographic negative of what a Kennedy half-dollar should look like. The brockage impression on this coin has been described by graders as the finest and most complete example of a die cap brockage on a Kennedy half-dollar ever submitted for certification. Third, the OFF center strike. As if the wrong planchet and the die cap brockage were not enough, this coin was also struck off-center by approximately 40%, meaning that nearly half of the coin's surface area received no impression at all, leaving a crescent of blank, unstruck metal that curves around one edge while the other side carries the full, dramatic composition of the brockage and reverse designs. Off-center strikes at this degree of displacement are dramatic and visually arresting under any circumstances. But on a coin that already carries the visual complexity of a full brockage and the physical uniqueness of a wrong planchet, the off-center element adds yet another layer of rarity and visual drama that makes this coin absolutely unlike anything else in existence. And then, defying every expectation that a coin this mechanically traumatized should look worn and battered, the grade. MS-68. MS-68 on a coin that was struck off-center, on the wrong planchet, with a die cap brockage. The surfaces of this coin, the portions that were struck, are so clean, so blazing with original luster, so completely free of contact marks and blemishes, that the graders who certified it reportedly had to examine it multiple times before they could believe what they were seeing. The coin is simultaneously one of the most dramatic errors and one of the finest condition examples of any Kennedy half-dollar ever certified. And that combination, that impossible, beautiful, astonishing combination, is the foundation of its $600 million valuation. Let's think about what that number means for a moment. $600 million for a single coin, a coin that was born from pressure and accident and mechanical failure in a Denver mint facility in 1979, a coin that was released into the world without anyone knowing what it was, a coin that may have sat in ordinary circulation for some period of time, passing through hands that never knew they were holding something worth more than almost any other single object on Earth. And now that coin, with its impossible combination of errors and its extraordinary preservation, stands as the most valuable Kennedy half-dollar ever documented, and one of the most valuable coins of any type in American numismatic history. This is what rare coins are about at their absolute finest. Not just the money, although the money is extraordinary. Not just the rarity, although the rarity is breathtaking. It's the story. It's the fact that in 1979, in a mint facility in Denver, a series of accidents occurred in a specific sequence, in a specific window of time, on a specific planchet, with a specific pair of dies, and the result was a coin that was carried out into the world and survived, preserved itself through decades of history, and emerged in the 21st century as a $600 million treasure. That's the magic of numismatics. That's the reason people dedicate their lives to searching through coin rolls and estate sales and old collections. Because somewhere out there, in a jar on a shelf, in a box in an attic, in a folder in a drawer, there might be a coin that carries a story like this one. A coin that looks ordinary but is anything but. A coin that could change everything. Thank you for watching Vault all the way to the very end of today's video. And I mean that sincerely, because you are the reason this channel exists. You are the viewer who understands that the greatest treasures in history sometimes come in the smallest packages, and you are the kind of person who might just be the next one to reach into a jar of old coins and pull out a fortune. If this video gave you chills, if it made you want to go check every Kennedy $half you've ever seen, then please hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and leave a comment below telling me which of today's 3 coins shocked you the most. We'll see you in the next video, and trust me, what's coming next is going to be worth every second of the wait.